This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is in no way medical advice. For 24/7 free and confidential support, referral, and treatment options and guidance, please call the National Suicide and Crisis Prevention Hotline at 988. If this is an emergency and you are in an immediate danger to yourself or others, please push pause on this episode and immediately call 911. Hi, I'm Danielle Todd, and you're listening to None of Us Are Normal. All right, welcome back, everyone. My name is Danielle, and I am here today with Sarah Tweet, and I'm very, very excited. We met, it was actually quite a few years ago now, which is wild. It feels like yesterday, but we met at a songwriters retreat, which just feels like, I don't know, serendipitous because we ended up being the closest of friends. We haven't even seen each other since that retreat. But Sarah, I just follow you and I find you so inspiring and I love watching everything that you do online. You are a teacher, you're a singer, you are in a 3-part harmony group, which is amazing. You lift weights, you do all sorts of amazing things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get into your health journey that you're on.
All right. Yes. Oh my gosh, you're right. We did become quite good buddies at that retreat, and I'm so happy that we met.
Me too.
I can't believe we haven't seen each other in all those years, but we'll change that.
Yeah.
So I am a vocal coach. I have been teaching voice for over 25 years. I own my own voice studio. But I'm also a professional singer. And like you said, I sing with a Motown trio. We sing all over Washington at this point, Washington State. And we do all kinds of things like outdoor summer concerts and corporate gigs and things like that, which is so much fun. And then, oh my goodness, as far as, I write my own music. My husband and I have a recording studio where we, are able to produce our own music. And at this point, that's kind of something that is a focus that I'm going to kind of shift into in the next couple years to really get a little bit deeper into that, because it's always been, teaching has been a higher priority. And I have 3 children. My 3 children are pretty much all grown up, 23, 21, and 14 now. And so I feel like I can focus on myself a bit more and kind of what I want to do with the rest of my life. So that's exciting and fun and scary. And the health journey, like you said, I lift weights. I started this journey, my goodness, about 3 years ago, where I really got into how to lift weights and to take care of my health in a way that is really helpful as you age. I learned about how weightlifting for women who are entering perimenopause, yes, that is where I am in life, that this is really important in general to be able to like keep your bones strong and your muscles strong and really help go through that time of life. And help keep your mental health in check and your physical health. So weightlifting has been the answer for me in that. So that's kind of all the things I'm doing right now. I am a person who loves to learn new things. So I love being a beginner at things. So I like to try things like I'm just learning how to do a handstand.
Nice.
Like, why? I don't know. I have these wonderful friends who come into my life who are like, I teach this. And I'm like, okay, want to trade? I'll teach you how to sing and you teach me how to do the thing, right? So right now it's a handstand. But that also helps me use the strength I'm building in my weightlifting, that I can hop up and try to, use that strength in a way that's like, feels like fruitful. Like I can do this thing because I'm strong now,
Yeah, that's awesome. When we first met at the retreat, that's what we did. We did a handstand. That was like
That's
the
hilarious. You're
that
right.
yes, that was the goal at the end of the week, that everyone on this songwriters retreat had to learn how to do a handstand. It's like, what? But we all did it.
We did. Oh my gosh. I love that that's like coming back around right now in this conversation. So funny.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So that's kind of a little bit of what's going on. My oldest just graduated from college. So that's a weird phase of life to be in. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. It seems like there's kind of a lot of changes and a lot of crossroads that you're kind of heading into, which is really, really cool. And you've been at crossroads before, and I've just watched from online or like chatting with you on the phone. And I'm always very impressed with how you handle these changes in your life. So it'll be, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see kind of where you head. So I wanted to take a step back and also you forgot to mention that you're like a queen crocheter.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have all these weird things about me. Yes.
Yes, I love it. And you sent me like candy at Christmas. She does everything, guys. Sarah is the best.
If there's something quirky, I'll do it and form a business around it.
Yes. Amazing. Well, I wanted to take just a step back and chat with you about your physical health journey
Mhm.
and what kind of prompted you to start it. I know that this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here. It's a very inspiring story. I love how you tell it, and I'm just give our listeners a little bit of background that you'd like to share on that.
Yeah. So, the journey really began as I entered into my 40s, really seeing how my body was changing and kind of how I was handling stress. And I had teenagers at the time, which was very stressful. And so, uh, having that kind of come to the top of my head of like, wow, I need to like figure out how to manage my stress and my health. And also, my dad passed away very early. He was 47 when he passed away, and I was almost 18. And so, um, as I entered my 40s, I really started to become fearful for my health because of how young he had passed away, from health problems. So he had diabetes when he was, it came on when he was in his early 20s, and type 1, we've decided, yes. And so all through like my childhood, I remember my mom, giving him insulin in the morning. And even sometimes when he would have a low blood sugar moment where that was really scary. I remember that happening. And then through my, so that when I hit about 12 and he was in his early 40s, he had total kidney failure. And so when that happened, they weren't sure initially what was wrong. They thought he was sick with something else, and he ended up in the hospital, and they had discovered that he had total kidney failure. So at that point, he began dialysis. And so I was, like I said, about 12, and I was homeschooled. So I was the youngest of four, always with my parents. And so we would travel into town because we lived in a small town far away from any hospital and all that. So we would go 3 days a week to dialysis uh, with him. And so we were always at the hospital. We were always, you know, in that environment, and he couldn't work anymore. He had to uh, be on disability. So it was just, it changed our life so much at that point when he got sick with kidney failure. And so he went through all these years of being on dialysis and being on a list to have a kidney transplant. And it never happened. He passed away before he um, ever received a kidney. So, and what is a very interesting element in this is that like he was my biggest fan. My dad loved my music. He loved. I mean, it was like he would weep every time he heard me sing. I was a shy kid, so I they didn't even know, my parents didn't know that I could sing until I was like 14. I knew I could sing, but I was a pianist. I played piano and studied piano, and so when they discovered that I could sing, my dad was just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is, your this talent that you have." And so he was just super supportive. He bought me my first keyboard when I was 16 instead of a car, because that's what I wanted. I wanted a keyboard.
Aw, that's so nice.
So, anyways, such a huge supporter of me. And a very ironic thing is that he passed away after one of my vocal jazz concerts in college in the parking lot. We walked out from our concert, and he went down on the ground, and he never came back. And that was it's a very pivotal, monumental moment, that I feel like he was doing something he loved so much the day he passed away. But it's just a strange moment that it was just like music. He got to hear me sing, and then he passed away. So that's just an interesting element that my brain always goes back to with him. And just kind of like he's always been, like, throughout all these years that he's been gone, such a supporter, and I can feel him in that in my life throughout, woven throughout my musical journey. So so back to the health journey. When I got into my 40s, I just really realized, like, I think I had an awakening when I went to the doctor. It was 2020. I had gained quite a bit of weight, and I wasn't feeling great. Life was pretty good, but I wasn't feeling super good physically, and I was getting really, really fearful about where I was headed uh, with my health. And I went to my naturopath, and she said, "You have extremely high blood pressure." And, like, almost in this appointment, she's like, "I'm almost about to send you to the ER. Like, your blood pressure is so high." And I was like, and I always, when I go to the doctor, I always have high blood pressure anyway, because I'm kind of an anxious person. So I'm always like, it's okay. I take it again. But she was like, "No, it is so high, and I'm concerned for you." And so she put me on medication immediately. And it just really hit me, like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to go down a path of, I have choices here. I can do something about this high blood pressure, and I can start to um, take myself on a journey of that I'm the one who is in control of my health. Like, we can't control everything, right? But we can do a lot to help ourselves. And so let's see, I hired a health coach, and actually I traded with my health coach. Somebody I knew. So she was like, I was like, "Hey, do you want to take," she wanted to take voice lessons. I think she was actually already taking lessons. And I was like, "I would love to trade with you, and you help me on my health journey of how to get um, a handle on, lowering this blood pressure, because I knew I could. That's something you can do." And so I wanted to see if I could do it. So she and I started meeting, and she put me. She was. I know sometimes these, like, certain diets, like, people don't promote them or whatever, but this worked for me. I went on a keto diet, and so I had about 20 pounds I wanted to lose, and so she just was super good at how to do this keto diet well, like, in a really healthy way. So we started that diet, and just to shed the initial unwanted pounds. And then I also joined a gym all at the same time. So when I joined this gym, this is a wonderful, I'm so grateful for it. We have this wonderful local, uh, a wonderful woman who started this gym just in one location. Um, she has expanded to maybe 5 or 6 locations around, like, the Seattle area or Tacoma area. And so there was a gym opening up in my little town that I live in, Gig Harbor, and I was like, I'm going to join that. I'm going to go right at the beginning. It's all women. And I had a little bit of a struggle with that because I just, like, all women just sounded like, oh, that feels scary to me. I don't know that I love, because I'm not usually the one who, let's go on a women's retreat and let's go. Like, I just, in general, I feel like that hasn't been me, like, to be like super in the group with all the women, right?
Yeah.
That's felt intimidating, and especially with fitness, really intimidating. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. Gonna go right at the beginning of when they start, and they're opening this gym 2020. So, all of that had happened, the pandemic, and we're in the thick of it, and they were still opening this gym, and we were able to get in there. And so I started, and I didn't know anything. I mean, I had worked out throughout my life, like on my own. I had done some running, and I had done some, little weights, and I just stayed physically active just because I can't help it. I have to move. I'm just kind of an energetic person. So, but I had never done anything like this before, and I've never felt like an athletic person. So that was like scary. It's called,
I can relate.
yeah, right?
I can.
Yeah.
Like I've always been like in shape, I guess, but
Mhm.
never like had to work very hard to get there. Like I don't know. And if I would go to the gym, like I'd work out and I would get stronger pretty quickly, because it was just like my body at the time.
Mhm.
However, when you get older, it does shift and it's not as easy. So if
Yeah,
anybody's listening and they're like 20 years old, go now.
totally. Start young.
Yes.
Um, totally. So yeah, that's the same. I was just always, didn't have to work very hard to stay in decent shape. And that definitely shifted for me. So this gym, the athletic abilities for me were never something that I didn't do sports. I didn't, that wasn't something my family was like, we're good at the sports things. That wasn't us. So I don't have a lot of confidence in that world of athleticism. So, like, no confidence actually. It's building now, but it was not there. So, but I'd always had a really strong interest in weightlifting. Like, that intrigued me. My oldest brother he is very athletic and always was growing up. Um, but he was always lifting weights he's 11 years older than me. And I was always intrigued by that. I just loved muscles. I don't know. It just like made me, I was like, muscles are great. I want muscles. And um, so when we got into this gym, they use a lot of the barbell and learning how to do like Olympic weightlifting lifts and, uh, all that kind of stuff, powerlifting and stuff. So all these techniques we were learning within our regular routines, of like adding like HIIT workouts in, and things like that. So this was all new to me. I didn't know like this terminology or how to have this kind of form. And so having a chance to learn this it just lit me up. So I got in there and just, you mentioned like motivation earlier and like how
Yes.
to be motivated and how I find motivation. Uh, and I don't know, for me, I'm a very determined person. And so I get kind of almost like addicted to stuff in that way. Like, it makes me like, if I feel good and I feel happy, then I will go for it really strongly.
So
And
did
so,
you like it right off the bat? Like you went in and you did your first workout and you're like, I can't breathe and I feel like I'm going to be sick and this is amazing. Let's go back tomorrow. Like is that how you felt? Or was it did it take a little bit of time to get into that mode?
I was so ready, and I've done a lot of um, just mental work, like mindset work in my life. And so that I think that preparation, I was doing my work with my health coach. She was helping me a ton with that mindset work ahead of time. So we had a little, probably a month before I started at that gym, where my mindset was so ready. And so, if anything, it is all mindset. And so,
So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how did you prepare? That's so cool because that's such a correlation then between your physical health and your mental health. So, how
totally.
did you like are there certain techniques that you did that you would be able to share with us, like how you, because I am interested.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there's so these journeys, I tell you, they're deep and long. But the my mindset shift, I've been doing mindset work for probably, like, really intentionally, probably for about 5 years, 5 or 6 years now. Um, and it was after, like, I used to be a very, like, religious person, and I left that completely. So Christianity was what I grew up in, and totally was 100% immersed in for my entire life. And then I left it, and not like overnight, but I started to, there were different things in my life that were happening that really um, moved me out of that into much more mindfulness in. And for me, those two didn't coexist, and that's, lots of people have different ways they go about that, and that for me personally couldn't coexist. So I started that journey after I left the church, basically, and really started going through a lot of different books. One of them was, and I highly recommend, um, the Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. Have you ever heard?
Artist's Way. Okay.
Oh
So we'll
man.
put that in our show notes for everyone.
Totally. That one was a big eye opener for me, and really how to uh, put my artist self in the forefront, and really, like, let go of a lot of things that I was taught throughout my life of just being super um, service oriented. Not that service isn't good, I believe in service, but I definitely was someone who put everyone else before myself in a lot of things. And so that had to go, and I had to find a balance in that. And that helped me um, with that mindset work, and the Artist's Way really taught me how to do that. And it was the idea that if I am empty from serving everyone else, I can't there's nothing for me to give anymore, especially to my family. Like, taking care of everyone, all the things, saying yes to everything, doing all the things that everybody, and I mean, I have a really strong talent, so it gets used a lot, and it gets abused. It did in the past, to where I would say yes to a lot of things without, um, really considering what I wanted or needed from these situations. And so I was really burnt out, and so this book helped me a lot, The Artist's Way, to really say yes when I needed to say yes, and no when I needed to say no. And so that was one major book that I highly recommend. And it's a course, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it like it walks you through it then. Okay, cool. So do
Yeah.
you think, now this is just like a question out of nowhere, but do you think that like also getting old helps you stop being a yes person? Maybe like you need to do the work to get there, but do you think that your mindset sort of shifts anyway as you're getting older? Because I feel like the same. And I feel like when I guess if people have heard my last season of podcasts, I talked about my 30th birthday, and I feel like a lot of things really, really shifted when I hit 30. And I
Yeah.
know it's like funny because it's just a time, it's just a, like a societal stamp, I guess,
Yeah.
being 30. But kind of my mindset sort of shifted as well. Like I want to really, 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 really love and be there for the people that I really, really love.
Yeah.
And then I also want to provide like the best version of myself for everyone around me. And like you're saying, you can't do that if you are being completely drained in other areas and saying yes to everything. And maybe not like even just like as musicians, I'm not sure if everyone listening is musician, but as musicians or artists, like a lot of times you are asked to do your career for free
Yes.
and or exposure. And like honestly, I don't blame people for asking us to do that because they don't know, I guess, how much goes into it, because when we go up there it looks effortless,
Right.
but they don't realize how much time is put into it. And so like and so I guess what I'm saying is when I got older, I started to say like, I'm sorry, I can't actually do that for free. Like I have, a mortgage and a dog and a husband now. So like it's not just me that we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just in your aging process, did that sort of did you want to change yourself and that's why you went for that mindset shift to figure out how, or
Yeah.
no?
I well, it definitely sometimes these things aren't, brought on by your own, like, I think I'm ready to change. There's
Yes.
usually some major crisis or something that happens. And that was for me, there was just a lot going on with my family that was very like that really helped me see things very differently and made me go, wow, I have not done well taking care of myself. But I also started having children at 21 years old. So I did not ever, I was a child and then I was a young mom and I was giving care to other people.
Well, that even like there's like a little like a few years, if you were 18 when your dad passed away, you were a caregiver as well to him, like maybe not in a huge way, but like yeah, huge way. Yeah. So obviously you've been a caregiver for your whole life. That would be a really big sort of habit, I guess, to
Yeah,
break, right? Like
exactly.
not seeing somebody and being like, "Oh, I need to help you right away." You
Totally.
know?
And it's a habit that is a very praised habit by people. Like, oh, that's such a lovely thing about you that you give and give and give and serve and help. And it's actually something that I've really had to work on undoing as I get older because it felt for me to take care of myself felt very selfish. And that was always taught to me that, selfishness is bad and that is not, I mean, at least that's the way I took it when I was learning about being selfless and selfish, as if selfish was something that was bad. And I do not believe it is. I think it's very good.
Yes. So
I think, yeah.
so if you oh man, what were you just saying? I almost want to go back and ask. Oh, what was I going to say about selfless and selfish? Um,
It
it's
was a,
gonna.
yeah, it was a praised habit, I guess was what I was
That's right. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
saying. Mhm.
So, did you do you find that you're still praised for what you do, or do you find that your reactions are different, perhaps even more because you have more to give in the areas that you're giving? Like, have you noticed a difference in that? Like, because you said it's very praised, and like you feed off that. That's like an addiction, right? Like you say,
Mhm.
I want those good feelings.
Yeah.
And so, if you really did make that shift to start paying more attention to yourself, are you still noticing that the people around you are still appreciating you? And if so, maybe even more?
I would say, yeah, it's interesting because I've backed off on so many areas that I used to give in. And I've also, my relationships, a lot of the relationships and friendships I had before are not there anymore,
Mhm.
which is interesting because I think there was that initial, or the common thread of that sort of mindset that was there and that was looked upon as good. And now that I have shifted into focusing more on the things that really matter to me and my family and who my family is and the things that really matter to me and my career and what I want to say yes to and give my energy to, because we can give so much of our energy to so many things, and if we're doing that we're just depleting ourselves and taking away from energy that we could be giving full force to in one area or several areas that really matter to us. And so when I stopped giving energy to certain areas or people, that those people kind of went away, and then the ones who matter at this point to me the most are definitely see the shift in how much I give and share and love them, right? And the things that I give attention to. So it's like it gave all this electricity to these wonderful areas that I wanted and needed to give to, and it took away the electricity to areas that were more detrimental to me.
Right. That makes total sense. That's totally understandable. And I feel like going through your younger years, I had this conversation with my aunt the other day, actually. Like going through your younger years, you have such a a bigger sort of group of people
Mhm.
that you might spend your time with and you might go out with, and like you really make it like a priority to have a girls' night or this and that. And like lately I've been like this homebody. I've been really wanting to be at home. And I'm like, what is happening to me? Like my whole life, I'm like this girl that like goes out every night, and like I'm like the one that, I want to see this person and this person and this person. But at this stage in my life, I feel like what's most important to me is at home. And I feel like it just sort of shifts. And that's where I want to put my energy. And like I love my house. I love my sunroom. I love my dogs. I love my husband and my family back at home in Canada. Like I go home to spend as much time with them as I possibly can because, you know, time is just going by. And so yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I was just like kind of, in order to figure out who you are, you kind of have to spend your time with all sorts of different types of people to figure out, I guess, who you are internally. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I think that if you look at it that way, um, in kind of a neutral, like, that's all exploring and it's all part of figuring out who you are, and there isn't a good or a bad with that, right? And I mean, I'm watching that with my own kids who are young adults now, doing a lot of exploring and a lot of um, just checking out who they are and what fits them well. And like that for me was not something I did because I had a very strict mindset about what was right and wrong and entered into that. So it's really fun to watch my kids because I don't put that on them. I support their exploration and support them figuring out and failing and trying and getting up again and doing something and having a hard moment, but that I'm there for them in that, not telling them what to do or how to do it, but just going, I'm here for you, right? So I do feel like you're saying you got to be probably more exploratory as a young person, doing like that kind of thing. And then as you're getting older, you're like, and I don't want to do that anymore. I like being home. I like, so it's kind of opposite for me. I feel like
Oh, that's funny.
I'm now exploring so much more, even though I love to be home. I'm an introvert, so I do love alone time. Um, but now I feel like I'm kind of like, I got my kids raised and I'm like, let's go do stuff. I want to do
Yes.
things. So yeah, it's interesting, but definitely it's fun to get older to be, I actually love getting older because I love that I don't care anymore what people think about me. And I cared so much, major people pleaser right here.
Yeah.
And so that mindset work for me has been a work in learning how to disappoint people and how to be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like going back to what I was saying there, like I love to be home, and I love to spend time at home, but also like I think my interests have shifted in the fact that like when I travel, like I want to travel too, which is hilarious because I want to be at home, but like I want to see the world. Like I want to go to Egypt so bad. It's been my dream since I was like 4.
Oh my gosh.
And I just want to go, I want to travel and see the world. But like I feel like my experiences and, you know, getting older makes you shift. Like
Yeah.
people assume automatically because I'm a musician that I'm like this big drinker and partier. And
Right.
I guess in my 20s, like, yeah, I mean, I would go out and have a night out all the time with people, and it was super fun, and I had a great
Mhm.
time, and I had a lot of friends. And but now I don't drink at all, and people are like shocked. Like they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
people will come up and say, "Can I buy you a drink?" And I say, "No, I'm sorry. Like I don't drink." And they're like, "Well, why not?" Like, well, actually, I'm super cool when I'm sober too. So, like, because I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't drink. Like, it's not like I'll have a glass of wine with maybe dinner or something once in a while. But it's
Yeah.
funny how my whole life growing older, like, it just totally, totally shifts from, every decade, I guess. It's just
Yeah.
totally different. And what you care about
Yeah.
becomes um I guess just different as you get older. And then it's funny because all of those years you were learning and you thought like this is the way that I need to be, and then all of a sudden you're like you're saying your mindset has to shift with what you want, I guess. If that makes sense. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Very much. Yeah. Yeah, so that has been the mindset work to me is something that, I work on all the time, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you wake up like motivation wise, sometimes you're like, I don't feel good today, or I feel really emotional, or I feel really angry, or and also like as you get older, you start to learn how to like let these emotions that have been suppressed for a long time like start to come through, and then you can let them pass, right? And then you can get into, so for me to like get to the gym, I go try to get there 5 days a week. And it's something that when because I do it so often now, I get there, and when I'm done, I never regret going. I'm always so happy I went. So I look for the happy place, right? I look
Right.
for the thing that makes me happy. And so when I know, like in the morning, like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like it today. Sometimes I don't go. Sometimes I'm like, my body needs to rest, and I'm going to listen to my body, right? That's another thing. As I get
Yeah.
older, listen to my body so much more. I
Yeah.
had a lot of denial about listening to my body growing up, and really until about 5 years ago. And so that but I do, if I know I'm just like, oh, I'm kind of tired, I know I'm going to feel a lot better, and I'm going to have a lot more energy. So I can go into my brain and feel what that feeling feels like and focus on the good feeling. So that's also another technique that I've really learned from, actually, here's another, this one's a little out there, but it's it's this woman named oh, what's her actual name? I think it's oh shoot, I forget her actual name. Esther Hicks. And she sort of like channels and this is out there, but it's going to sound kind of weird. She kind of channels like uh, source energy.
Okay,
So
I'm here
what
for it. So,
okay.
yes, I
Well,
love it.
this was all in the past for me. This would have been absolutely a no. This would be right. Not
Yes.
anymore. I'm so like here for it too. So I know. So this is gonna get a little woo woo here, but she channels like source energy, which is what people might call God, right? And what I still believe in God, and I believe, so we can call it the universe, source energy, whatever you want to call it, right? I definitely believe in it. Okay. And so she really talks about, so she channels, she calls, and this person, this being or beings, is called Abraham Hicks. So if you ever look Abraham Hicks up, you will see that a lot of people follow this or like are into this whole Abraham Hicks thing. Well, I definitely learned so much from listening and kind of going, because my health coach helped me. She put me on this track of like, here, listen to this. Like, if you want to, you don't have to. I know it's kind of out there. And it just connected. I connected with this idea. And a lot of what she talks about is shifting, like, you know how we want to get really positive. We wake up feeling really negative and we're like, I need to just like, how come I can't think, totally positive and like think of something that, like I want to have something so different happen to me, right? So maybe you're like, why can't I get up in the morning and go to the gym? And then you beat yourself up about it or whatever. It's really shifting your mindset into little tiny adjustments, like, well, I'm going to wake up today and maybe I'll just go for a walk down the road, and I'm going to focus on how that makes me feel, right? And I'm going to make that little tiny adjustment and put my energy and my thoughts there. And then so we take this time to make these little adjustments in our mindset, in finding that happy, easy place in ourselves, in our mind. And instead of like beating ourselves up or thinking negative about the thing that is positive, right?
Right.
So going, oh, why can't I go to the gym? I really need to because it's so good for me, but I can't get like we're in a negative, low vibration place when we have those kinds of thoughts, right?
Yes.
So if we shift into like, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk and that's going to feel good and it's easy. And I'm going to think about how good that feels and just shifting that thought process into ease instead of hard. So
Yes.
that to me is something that I've worked at. That's a skill and it's not hard. Like we tell ourselves everything's so hard. It doesn't have to be hard, right? We can shift into these spots that are easy and we find ease and joy and happiness in. So,
I I just love that. I love how you said um that you find your happiness.
yeah.
So you, instead of focusing on how tired you are and how you don't want to get out of bed or how, it's like, if I could just have a few more minutes of sleep, it would be great. Instead of focusing on that, you focus on, after I work out, I'm going to feel happy. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm going towards. So like you're just chasing happiness wherever you go. And I love that. I love that. That's such a cool way to think about it for
Yeah.
sure. And I love that. I'm gonna definitely look it up. So what's the book? We're gonna put it on our show notes. Or
So,
the person. It's
Abraham Hicks.
Abraham Hicks. Okay, we'll take a look into
Mhm.
that. That's cool. We're gonna
Yeah.
shift our whole life. I love it.
It's great. And it really, I mean, like for me, it's really, really made a huge difference. So, mm, I
Well,
don't
you have made a huge difference in the last few years. So I trust your judgment. It's been amazing.
know.
Are there any sort of like milestones that you've reached physically that you've been really proud of that, you thought maybe you like, oh my gosh, it's so far down the road, but then you've hit them or anything like that? Or have you just kind of focused on the journey rather than any milestones?
Well, I think what well, definitely initially when I hired the health coach and I wanted to lose the 20 pounds, I lost the 20 pounds. So that was a big milestone for me to go, okay, I don't have to accept the thought that when you get into your 40s that you just gain weight and that's it. And I just have to accept that. You just gain weight, you get old, you get unhealthy. Like, so that was huge to go, okay, I can lose this weight in my 40s and I know how now in a healthy way. And so also learning about I think a milestone for me is learning how to be with food because I had a lot of anxiety around food and I didn't know it, but I did. And so that awareness, like becoming really aware of what I need and my protein intake and to understand that about myself every day instead of like, oh no, I forgot to eat because I'm a forgetter to eat. Like that's typically was my life. I would forget to eat and I'd be so hungry and then I just eat
Yeah.
whatever was there, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm very like I know exactly what and this has become the idea of counting macros, which is learning how much fat, carbs, and protein you should have every day. and really knowing that and what my body needs, that's a huge milestone for me because now I know that I have control over that for the rest of my life. And I know how it works and I know what I need and I never have to worry about it again.
That's
That's
great.
huge.
Yeah.
Um, Also, just with weightlifting in general, you're constantly working toward personal records, your PRs. And so there's always a milestone to hit because if you've been working, and to me that's highly motivating. I love that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to work. I bought my own weight bench and like my own barbell and all that to work at home too so that I could just do the thing because it makes me feel part of why I love it is I release a lot of emotion when I'm doing it. So when I'm lifting really heavy, my fuel can be because I have intense emotions. So I can fuel with those emotions. Like if I'm feeling angry or sad or um, just whatever emotion is intense that day, I can and use that as my power source to lift heavy and it releases all this energy through my body and I wear myself out in the best way and then I feel better. Just that
Yes.
anxiety level goes down because I had done something with it. I used it for something. So being able to lift heavier and heavier and have a PR, those are always milestones for me. But one of the biggest ones was I had horses growing up, and I love horses still, and I hope to own my own again someday. And I started working at a barn, and I do it every Sunday just because I love it, and I love the
It's
smell, and I love the horsies, and I started taking riding lessons again. And so when I got back on that horse after I don't know a lot of years and started riding again, and felt really good and able and strong and not afraid, that was a big milestone for me to go, I'm doing things with my body that allow me to, that this strength that I'm building allows me to do all kinds of stuff that I would start to, if I hadn't started doing that, I would be afraid of and would just be like, oh, this is life now. I'm going to get older and I can't do fun stuff
yeah.
because I can't physically get on the horse or I'm afraid to get hurt or do these different things that you start to kind of, I feel like we can start to close up in our mind about our ability to live, you know?
Yes.
And I'm like, I want to live like well through all as long as I can, especially having a parent that died young. You really want to live when you see that because here I am I'm 45, he was 47. Those years of the amount of life that he lived, if that were my life, they would be almost over, and
Yeah.
so I'm motivated to really, really live. So those are those are a few milestones, I guess you could say.
I think that's great. It's funny because the more you talk about, and then I did horseback riding, and then I did that, and it's like all over the place. You are just constantly go, go, go. And that's so inspiring I hope it's inspiring for everyone listening too, because it really is like to me, I hear it and I'm like thinking to myself, like, yes, I am going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like, as you're talking, I'm like, well, I could work at a barn. Why don't I work at a barn? That's a great idea. I love horses. I want one day, and I have a
Right?
sheepdog, so I could just take her to the barn. It would be perfect.
Right, exactly. There's no reason you couldn't do that for
That's
sure.
so funny.
Yes, I am a big person also like the idea of manifestation. So that's also something that I've really learned about in the last few years that is very real about how if you really want something and there's something in your heart that you're like, I feel this thing and I want to go get it, how to do that. And that was one of those. The barn for me was like, I really want horses in my life again. And I literally just started to put my focus there. And again, that's something I actually want. I want a farm. Like, so someday, so this tattoo, my oldest gave me, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Um, that's my everyday to look at like that's someday I'm going to have my own horses and my own barn and some property So those are things like to focus that energy. And so anything that you're hearing me say and you're like, oh, I want to do that, just start to put that into your energetic, mindset to where you're like, oh my gosh, maybe that's something I do want. And guess what? It will pop up for you. You've probably seen
Yes.
that in your life, right, Danielle?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like it actually happens a lot after I talk to you. So
Yes, that's great.
so I remember during COVID, I mean, a lot of people were feeling, I guess you could say, a little lost and a little confused and maybe a little bit overwhelmed and all those things.
Yes.
Um, I was one of those people. And I remember like just reaching out to you and being like, can I just talk to you?
Yeah,
And we just talked. We talked for a long time on the phone, and
I
you were
love.
like, "You can do this." And you were so excited, and I was like, "Yes, I can. I can do whatever I want." And
Yes.
yeah, you have that energy about you, and it all the work that you've put into your mindset has clearly worked, because I've since the day I met you, you were just like this shining light and your voice was beautiful. I still remember your song. We were in like a cabin out in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, and you wrote this song in like an hour, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And yeah, so it's very, very inspiring what you're doing. I know I've said that word a million times, but that's the word for you. Is there anything else that you would like? Because, like, I feel like that was amazing. I loved everything that we talked about. Is there anything else that we should um, maybe touch on that you liked? Like, I had no idea about all this mindset stuff, and I'm like, oh my
Right.
gosh, perfect.
Good.
Um, is there anything else that you would want to kind of chat about on air before we do the pick me up?
Right. I would say what kind of I'd love to like process out loud my own future
Yes.
with you,
Okay.
because I think it's so important to know, like, as much as like you're like, oh, you've done this and it's so inspiring. I'm scared. Like, I don't know what's happening next, right? There's a lot that happens for all of us where we feel insecure or like like what do they call it? Um, oh, no, I can't think, like a fraud or a what's the term? Anyway, when you're like not able to do the thing that you're doing, right? Or you feel like you can't uh you're like, I want to go do this thing and I'm ready to go do it, but you're like, I don't know that I actually can, or that I actually have the knowledge or the ability. So my what I'm looking to do, and I'm just going to say this out loud because I believe in manifestation. So so
Yes.
is I am actually, as much as I love teaching, I am most likely making a big shift in my coaching. And you mentioned stuff earlier that I'm like, ooh, I want to talk more about that, because I am actually going to phase out of my weekly lessons that I've done for years. Like I've told you, I've taught for 25 years plus, off and on in different ways. But for my studio, I am going to phase out of weekly lessons into a project based coaching. So that's exciting for me and scary. But the main reason I'm doing that is to focus much more on performing full time. And
Good
so,
for you. I love
yeah,
that. I
that,
love
and
that.
I'm so excited. It also freaks me out because, stability, income, things like that, that you're like really used to, that a teaching in my studio allows for me to do. But performance has picked up a ton for me I sing with the Motown Jewel Tones, but that company that my good friend Charisse owns is called Premier Vocal Entertainment, and so we're doing she has other groups underneath that umbrella, and so I'm forming some other things underneath that umbrella. And so one of those is like a solo diva offering. So that's something that I'm working on developing this my own, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, all those, the Adele, all the divas, and doing a show based off of that. So that's something that's in the works. I'm terrified. I'm excited to be able to have that offering. Um, and then, so I'm saying these all out loud because they aren't there yet. They don't exist yet. It's not there yet. I also have a friend who I've been doing the handstands with. She's an aerialist, and I've been doing all this, these projects with her where we are combining aerial and vocal performance. So I had written a song, she did an aerial act to it, and that was so cool and outside of the box. And just her vision to be able to go do these visual and audio moments that are very like it's like you go outside of your body when you see someone interpreting what you're singing physically through aerial,
Yeah.
through on silks and a hoop in the air, and they're just doing these beautiful moves. It's such an experience. So we're working on doing these types of performances and booking those kinds of gigs, um, and and then working on my own music and recording and writing and wanting to get out there way more in that world, because that's always what I've wanted my whole life anyway, was just to be a recording artist, to be touring and all that stuff. So that is a focus I'm really really going to spend some time on now that I'm moving teaching out of the way a bit, because we talked about that energy split. My energy has been very on teaching and coaching, and so I'm going to shift that energy flow to much more of the performance world. So I just had to say that all out loud.
No, I love that because when you do your diva show, like you have your first ticket sold right here because that is like that's what I grew up on. Mariah is my girl, and so
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I could sing every single song from her first record all the way till now. Like, love Mariah. So and I love your voice, so I can't wait to see
Oh,
you perform and do that because that would be phenomenal.
thank
I'm
you.
very very excited for you, and yeah, and I love I love how you are manifesting this and how you are thinking outside the box and you're such a creative soul. Um, I just I just always wish the very best for you and I'm always watching you online. So actually, why don't you tell people where they can follow your health journey and your singer journey because you have two different accounts, right?
Right, I
Yes.
do. I do. So the my health journey, which is really just it's really like a personal Instagram. But if you want to follow it, have fun, go for it. I love to inspire, but I really did it for myself. But it's called The Strong Singer, and it's Instagram. So if you just look up The Strong Singer, you'll find that, and that's kind of it's a private account, so you have to ask if you can join it, just because it's really is my own personal journey. And then my music, you can find me Sarah Lynn Tweet on Instagram, which is, again, it's very mixed with my personal life and my family and music and what projects I'm working on. I also
Crochet.
have and crochet. Yes.
Yes.
And I have, you can find sarah.tweet.com. That's my just music website. And then for coaching, Tweet Voice Studio. That you can look that up, the website for that. And then that's all on Facebook too. And I think, if the Jewel Tones, if you want to look at the Motown inspired trio, that's the motownjeweltones.com.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of places
We
you can go
will
for me.
You know what? Instead of having to worry about it, we will have everything in the show notes for people. They can just go down there and they can just click on it while they're listening.
Beautiful.
And yeah, we'll make sure to get everything in there. Um, well, thank you so much for being a part of this today. After you
Thank
were talking
you
about,
for having me.
thank you. After you were talking about reserving your energy and putting it to things that matter to you, I really appreciate that this was one of them. I know you're a
Yes.
very busy
Oh,
person, so thank you. Thank you for doing this. Now it's time for your pick me up of the day, a quick piece of advice to help you through hard times.
hi, I'm Sarah Tweet, and I'm here to give you a quick little pick me up from Danielle Todd's podcast, which I'm so happy to be a part of. So I thought through this a little bit, and my thought about what is a good pick me up for me to help me kind of move out of, if I'm feeling low or feeling unmotivated or just need to nurture my soul, is make something with my hands. So that's what I encourage you to do is if you need that little pick me up, find something that you can make, some kind of craft, even baking, if that's something that makes you feel, nurtured. Like, take that time to create something. Use your hands. If you need to look up online on YouTube or for a tutorial, it's everything you need is out there just to grab something and make something. For me, it's crochet. So I grab my yarn, and I love the colors, and I love the feeling in my hands, and I love that I can just make a little something that makes me feel like I had some purpose in the day, and that it just brings me into the present and makes me be inside of my body. And then I have a beautiful item that I've made in the end, which brings happiness and joy to me and to others. So that's my pick-me-up.
Thank you for listening to None of Us Are Normal. Being a human is hard, and I hope hearing from other humans on my show helps you in your own experience. For additional resources or to learn more about today's guest, please visit danielletoddmusic.com. So make it worth every joy, worth every pain. Look for the sun.